This wasn't a random event. This was a targeted assassination.
A brutal killing.
There was a large amount of blood.
Numerous bullet wounds to his torso and head.
He was probably dead before he hit the floor.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
I was concerned about her description of the shooter being very cliche-ish, almost like a TV movie.
He's a con man. He goes by different names. So red flags are popping up all over the place.
Risky business deals with shady operators. He inevitably got himself, in plain English, in over his head.
The truth will be revealed.
What this came down to was greed. Every one of them was convinced that these two were somehow involved.
I've been a homicide detective for a long time, and oftentimes you just try to find the lie.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Spokane, Washington, an idyllic town nestled in the lush green mountains of the Pacific Northwest.
Spokane is a city of approximately 300,000 people. It's surrounded by mountains and farm country. Beautiful, with a river running right through the middle of town. It is a great place to raise a family and to make a life.
We don't have a lot of crime. We aren't like the big cities where we're going out on homicides every night.
But on a quiet December night, the peace of this town is shattered by gunshots.
911, what's your emergency?
Somebody shot my husband. Oh God, he's going to find me.
At 7:03 p.m., Alberta, Carlile called 911 reporting that someone had just shot her husband, Doug. Alberta, when she called in, it was right after she made it to a closet, locked herself in, and was hiding. And she called immediately. She had her phone with her. So we knew that this had happened within a minute or two of the call.
Officers arrived on scene. Medics came in and immediately began working on him. They pronounced him dead at 7:18 in the evening.
The victim is Doug Carlile, a 63-year-old businessman, devoted husband, and father of 6.
Douglas, he was a family man. He'd been married to his wife, Alberta, for 42 years. This was the love of her life. She knew everything that he did. They were always together. I got the impression that this had broken her. They had grown children, very religious family. From all outward appearances, a completely normal person. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't causing trouble.
He had his own excavation business in Washington and had expanded that business to include the oil trucking business and was attempting to get into the oil drilling business.
Within minutes of the 911 call, homicide detectives are on the scene.
It was a very affluent neighborhood, and this was one of the larger houses in the neighborhood. I was surprised when I was told the address of where the homicide had occurred, because typically we might go 20 or 30 years without having a homicide in those type of neighborhoods in Spokane.
Tasked with investigating the murder of Doug Carlile are veteran homicide detectives Mark Burnbridge and Brian Sesnick.
When I first entered the home, there was Christmas stuff all over. There was actually Christmas music playing over the stereo the entire time I was processing the crime scene. So it was decorated, and they were obviously ready for the holidays. The deceased, Mr. Carlile, was lying on his back, his arms out to the side. One round had gone in his mouth.
Doug had numerous bullet wounds to his torso and head.
There was a large amount of blood. It was obvious that the wounds had been fatal almost immediately. He was probably dead before he hit the floor.
Detectives begin processing the crime scene, looking for clues.
Initially, there wasn't a lot of evidence. I found 7 shell casings. Douglas Carlile was shot 7 times. He was hit 7 times. 5 of the bullets exited him, so I found 5 bullets in the house. 2 more were recovered at the autopsy.
The .45 caliber handgun had been fired at Mr. Carlile. The subject had emptied the handgun. He had almost no chance to survive those wounds for any period of time. This was a directed attack, and they fired it to make sure he was dead.
To track down the killer, detectives must now focus on the last 24 hours of Doug Carlile's life, beginning with the moment he arrived home at 6:55 p.m.
Alberta told me that she and Doug had gone to church that evening and had just arrived home from church. She removed their hidden key, which she used to enter the house. She put the key back in position, walked through the kitchen to a short hallway which leads to the upstairs. She was just getting to the 2nd floor when she heard voices downstairs. She heard 2 males talking in the kitchen, and she knew one of them was Doug, and she just assumed that one of them was one of her 4 sons. And so she came back downstairs to see who was at the house. She came to the bottom of the stairs and stepped to the entryway to the kitchen, and she could see Doug to her left, standing there with his hands in front of him, telling somebody, "You don't have to do this." She looked to her right, and near the kitchen table was what she described as a large male dressed all in black with a black stocking mask on with a hole in it. She could see the subject's eyes and nose and part of their mouth, and that they were holding a large handgun. Alberta said that they also had something on their chest and back, like a backpack or a shoulder holster, and that she turned around and started running. As she was running up the stairs, she heard a lot of gunshots. She didn't know the number. And that she ran upstairs and hid in one of the closets on the 2nd floor. Alberta had her cell phone with her and called 911 from a closet she was hiding in and directed police to their location.
Detectives theorized that Doug's murder could have been a burglary gone wrong.
I examined all the doors, all the windows, took photographs. There was a spare key to the house that Alberta talked about. I found that it was still in the same location it had been. So there was nothing to indicate that anyone had broken into the house at all.
I could find no sign that anything had been stolen or disturbed in the residence.
Douglas Carlile still had his wallet. He had cash on him, so it wasn't a robbery. I contacted a canine officer, and he showed me the path that his dog had tracked. Basically, it showed that the suspect had fled the back door of the residence, through some shrubs, over a small fence, and through the neighbor's backyard. It was cool out, but not frozen. There was some water in the neighbor's backyard, and you could see footprints in the mud.
A canine unit serves a very valuable purpose at any homicide scene when you have either property or a person that needs to be tracked from that scene. It's sort of the most versatile animal you can imagine. So they have speed and strength, but also the olfactory or the sense of smell that will lead them to items far more effectively and more quickly than a person just looking around.
Just beyond the neighbor's backyard was a field where we located a glove. It was a tan-colored welding glove. Normally that wouldn't be a big deal, but there was some dew on the ground and leaves had fallen, and this appeared to be sitting on top of everything and was dry. So right away we thought this may have been dropped by our suspect as he fled the scene. It was strange enough that there was no way we were going to leave it.
At a minimum, I was hoping to get a DNA sample from the glove that went to the shooter or someone that was at the scene who has been arrested before, so that I can identify them by name. Our canine was able to track the suspect past a school. We were later able to get the video from the external cameras on that school, and we could see a grainy figure running down the street just a minute or so after the shooting, leading off into the darkness toward the hidden trail. This camera was not a low-light camera, and so the footage just shows a grainy image of this individual running by. You can't identify him or tell race in any way. After looking at the getaway route, taking into account the hedges, the hidden gate, and the kind of hidden trail that the shooter took to get away from the scene, I told Detective Sesnick that I believed this was a directed attack, specifically targeting Doug Carlile, and I was very concerned.
This wasn't a random event. This was a targeted assassination.
Detectives now consider whether this could have been an inside job.
Family members or people you know kill you more often than a random, unknown person. And so I had to eliminate the family first.
When you have a murder, the first person you're going to look at is the spouse. And in this case, we had a spouse who was not only at the murder scene, but claimed to have seen the suspect. But the suspect didn't go after her. So that drew a lot of red flags for me. I was thinking, is this someone who's trying to pull something over my eyes, or is she really the loving wife?
Alberta provided a fairly detailed description of the shooter's clothing and the mask and some kind of gear that they had on their chest and back. I was concerned about her description of the shooter being very cliche-ish, almost like a TV movie, and it concerned me that it was being made up.
A story that is too detailed is inherently suspicious. Even if she didn't pull the trigger herself, could she have either hired or convinced someone to do her dirty work for her?
In the brutal murder of 63-year-old business and family man Doug Carlile, suspicion is swirling around his wife, Alberta.
My first interview with Alberta Carlile occurred at approximately 8:30 in the evening to 9 o'clock in the evening. The shooting had occurred around 6:30.
Alberta Carlile, she is different. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that when you're talking with her, there's a lot of religion that comes out. She would occasionally break down crying, and she'd want to pray and things like that. She's very emotional, and that comes across like she's faking it.
So Alberta's reaction in her interview to revert to prayer and sort of these soliloquies and speaking to herself and to God is obviously suspicious and piques the curiosity of investigators. This could mean one of two things. This is a stress response where she's seeking some kind of solace through prayer, or it's a convenient tactic of avoidance and deflection.
As a homicide detective, I've interviewed a lot of people who have had loved ones die from a murder. I've seen the whole gamut of emotion from that, from very stoic, almost non-emotion to hysterical crying. I try not to read a lot into that, but some of the things that Alberta said and some of her actions concerned me greatly. She didn't care about us processing the scene or getting evidence. Saying goodbye to Doug was more important to her than us catching the killer.
Detectives question potential motives that Alberta would have to want her husband dead.
She began talking about their finances and that a lot of what I had seen was just for show. They didn't have $40 in the bank. They didn't have any life insurance. They didn't have medical insurance. I'd had a chance to go through his phone. There wasn't another woman on the side. She didn't have anyone on the side. Basically, every text message and call was, "I love you," back and forth between them. And so once I ruled out that there was a financial incentive for her to be involved, I really believed her when she talked about how in love they were and how things were going between them.
Still grasping for a lead, detectives press Alberta to recall any details of the day of the murder that stand out as unusual.
Alberta started telling me that she thought she had seen a van earlier in the night up in the neighborhood.
One of the neighbors had called 911 a short time before the shooting, talking about a suspicious white van. About 5:45 in the afternoon, she had come home and noticed a white van parked in front of her house. It was in front of her driveway, and she immediately became concerned, thinking maybe someone had broken into her house. So instead of pulling into her home, she had driven around the block and noticed someone sitting in the driver's seat of the van. When this person noticed her watching, they drove off. A short time later, she looked out her window and the van was back, again parked in front of her house. So she called 911 to report a suspicious vehicle.
Was the mysterious white van connected to Doug's murder? Looking for answers, police canvassed the Carlile's neighborhood.
One of the homes had an external video system, and we actually had videotape footage of this suspicious van about 2 hours prior to the murder, driving through the neighborhood slowly. The van was unique in several ways in that it was an aftermarket extended van, and one of my detectives spent almost 2 weeks trying to identify specifically the make and model of that van. And in the state of Washington, we can run an all vehicles request. And so we requested all the vehicles in Spokane County and surrounding counties that match that van, and we came up with a list of 75.
Though detectives believe they may have images of the getaway vehicle, they're no closer to knowing the identity of the killer.
While I was talking with Alberta, obviously the big question in my mind is who would want your husband dead? And I asked her point blank, who are possible suspects? You've seen the person who shot him, who else could be involved in this? And the only name that she ever mentioned was James Henrikson.
Alberta told me that Doug was very afraid of James, who was one of his business partners, and that he had told her that if something happens to me, James did it.
An investor and project developer in the burgeoning oil sector, Doug Carlile had partnered with James Henrikson in a venture to extract oil in North Dakota.
James was a businessman in North Dakota. He owned a trucking company hauling water and oil out on the oil leases of North Dakota.
There's a lot of similarities between James and Doug. They both liked people to believe that they were rich. They both drove nice vehicles, had nice houses, liked to show it off, liked to pretend that they had a lot of money. And the fact is, neither of them did. Both were living well beyond their means.
Detectives reach out to the Carlile children, hoping they can shed more light on the relationship between Doug and James.
Every one of them was convinced that James was somehow involved in this murder, and that it had to do with the fact that their dad and James Henrikson were not getting along, and their business was going south.
Doug's eldest son reveals that the animosity between Doug and James had reached a fevered pitch in the days prior to his murder.
Doug and James Henrikson got into a verbal argument about the finances of the company. James Henrikson was demanding his investment back. It was a significant sum of money, over $400,000 they were arguing about, and Doug Carlile was refusing to pay him back that money. He was concerned enough for their father's well-being that they gave him a handgun that belonged to them so he could carry it for his safety. It is not uncommon for people that are potentially going to lose large sums of money based on either fraud, theft, or just bad business to resort to murder, either to recover their money or just to get even or pay the person back for costing them their money. In my experience, I've seen people kill people over $50. So hundreds of thousands of dollars is certainly something that someone might kill somebody over.
As the cliche goes, follow the money.
Detectives are zeroing in on a new suspect in the murder of family man Doug Carlile, his business partner, James Henrikson.
So early on, every family member is saying James Henrikson is involved in this. I just started Googling James Henrikson, and one of the first things that popped up was this ripoff report. He's a con man, he goes by different names. So red flags are popping up all over the place. And so, yeah, with his criminal history and everything that we knew about James at that point, that's when we decided we've got to try and talk to him.
I needed to find out his relationship with Doug Carlile and to see if anything that the Carlile family members had told me was potentially true. On the night of Doug's murder, after I had completed interviewing Alberta and her sons, they had provided to me contact information for James Henrikson to include his address and cell phone number. I contacted police radio and arranged for them to ping James Henrikson's cell phone so I could locate where that cell phone was prior to me trying to contact him. After about 20 minutes, I received a phone call from police radio who told me that that phone was being identified as being back in Watford, North Dakota. I contacted James Henrikson at home and spoke to him on the phone. I identified who I was and told him I was calling because Doug Carlile had been murdered. James Henrikson told me he was aware that Doug had been murdered because he had received texts from several people that he and Doug had in common as friends who were telling him that Doug had been murdered.
He denied having anything to do with the murder.
James Henrikson was guarded in his disclosures of information to me about Doug Carlile. I was asking him about how his business was doing, and he became angry and denied that there were any problems between he and Doug Carlile, and said it was Doug Carlile who lied to people and didn't pay his bills. I've been a homicide detective for a long time, and oftentimes you just try to find the lie that helps lead you down the correct path. And in this case, I either had the Carlile family that was lying or I had James Henrikson that was lying, and now I had to find evidence to bolster which side was telling the truth. While I was speaking with James on the phone, I wasn't comfortable that he was actually in North Dakota. In this day and age with cell phones, you can forward another cell phone to another cell phone or to a hard line at some residence. So he could have been in Spokane talking to me on a phone that was actually pinging off of a cell tower in North Dakota, and I wouldn't know that.
Cell phones are a really interesting investigative tool. The use of tower pings can essentially leave a trail of breadcrumbs confirming where a person has been or has gone. At the same time, a very calculating suspect could put a phone in a car, leave a phone on a subway, or send their phone with somebody else in order to lead investigators into a completely different area. In essence, a phone can be used to fabricate an alibi.
I later completed search warrants to get complete phone information from his phone, because if you get the actual background information, it will show whether that phone was being forwarded or not, or the actual physical location of that phone. And I was able to determine that it was not forwarded and was actually in North Dakota, 1,000 miles away from Doug's murder. That told me that he was not the murderer.
At that point, we didn't have any concrete evidence. We didn't have anything linking him to the scene.
Unable to put James at the crime scene, detectives ask him who might be angry enough to want Doug dead.
He told me that over the years, Doug, in his contracting business, had been sued a lot of times and had done a lot of shady deals, and there might be a lot of people that were mad at him that might be willing to hurt him.
Mr. Carlile had 31 liens against him. So there were a lot of people that were upset with him and that would have a reason to murder him.
Detectives dig deeper into Doug's business dealings and discover a desperate man hell-bent on success.
Doug borrowed $150,000 from his son Shane. Doug was promising investors 100% return on their money in 90 days or 6 months, depending on who the investor was, which was ridiculous.
Every dime that he had been invested in the business, and they were not bringing any money in. The business was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. There were IOUs outstanding. They'd taken loans from people up to $400,000 and promised repayment. Those had come past due, so people were upset wanting their money back. He was in dire financial straits.
He had contacted a middleman in the Middle East who was reportedly involved in finding investors for oil companies. This individual charged Mr. Carlile $90,000 for the right to apply for an investment loan. This was pure fraud, and this individual had no intent of conducting any true business with Mr. Carlile, so Mr. Carlile lost everybody's money again and didn't further this business.
Risky business deals with shady operators. Doug got himself, in plain English, in over his head.
I was going to have to expand the pool of possible suspects to everybody that was involved in lawsuits against him.
That leaves a very long list of potential suspects with very viable motives. Money is more than just dollars and cents. Money has a high degree of emotional attachment for people. It's tied to everything from self-esteem to status to identity. And when you begin tampering with that, people will, not surprisingly, respond emotionally, including through murder.
In the face of so many suspects, with the motive to want Doug Carlile dead, detectives reach out to the media looking for new leads.
I had put out a request in the media for persons that knew Doug Carlile or James Henrikson to contact us if they had had business dealings with them. Out of the blue, about a week after Doug's murder, an individual by the name of Robert DeLeo contacted me at the police station and said that he'd had business dealings with both James Henrikson and Doug Carlile and was willing to speak with me.
Robert DeLeo is a very smooth-talking guy, but he's a gang member. He'd been involved in a murder. He is involved in large quantities of drugs, and he'd been to prisons numerous times. He denied having anything to do with the murder. He denied that James had anything to do with the murder, but he felt that he needed to come in and let us know his relationship.
Suspicious of DeLeo's motive for coming forward, investigators question him about his whereabouts when Doug Carlile was killed.
He told us he was in North Dakota at the time of the murder. We checked phone records, we checked GPS records, and we confirmed he was in North Dakota, which is what his girlfriend told us.
Mr. DeLeo was insistent he knew nothing about the murders, and in fact, he took a polygraph the next day. And Mr. DeLeo passed that polygraph.
Despite DeLeo's alibi and polygraph, something just doesn't sit right with detectives.
I thought it was very odd that Mr. DeLeo came forward just to provide information that he knew Doug Carlile or James Henrikson.
Psychologically speaking, I think there might be a number of reasons why somebody would want to insert themselves into an investigation. One reason might be, I want to get close to the investigation. I want to control it. I want to know what's going on.
We often see them show up, for instance, in volunteer search parties where a body hasn't been found. And they want to keep abreast of what's going on so that they can stay a step or two ahead.
Also times, people when they have a criminal history are sometimes impulsive. They don't necessarily have the best judgment, and sometimes they make decisions that are ill-advisable. Sometimes they do this because they're arrogant.
After Mr. DeLeo left my interview room, I began working on a search warrant to include his cell phone, who they had been calling and texting, to try to create some kind of a connection between Mr. DeLeo, Mr. Henrikson, and anybody that might be involved in this murder.
Investigators then make a shocking discovery: that James Henrikson shared a similar criminal past with Robert DeLeo.
Robert DeLeo was James Henrikson's right-hand man. They had worked out in the same gym together, and then a couple months later ended up in jail together, ended up being cellmates. While sitting in jail, Henrikson told Robert DeLeo about his business ventures and his dreams of striking it rich in North Dakota, and told him, when you get out of jail, get a hold of me, I got a job for you.
But what was that job? Looking for answers, investigators do a deep dive into James Henrikson's partnership with Doug Carlile. They discover the business was in desperate need of a bailout from an angel investor.
Doug had developed this dream of being an oil man and owning an oil lease and oil wells without really understanding the full financial impact of what that meant. And he was trying to find partners to buy this oil lease for $2.1 million. Doug did not have that kind of money.
Luckily, Doug and James knew a contractor named Larry Tormazov with connections to big money.
Mr. Tormazov was personal friends with a gentleman in Moses Lake who was involved in the contracting business and who was very wealthy. Mr. Tormazov was then contacted by James Henrikson, where they discussed the possibility of this wealthy individual becoming involved in the oil lease. James Henrikson stood to make a lot of money if they could move the oil lease and the drilling of the well forward, and they were desperately running out of time to make that happen, or they were going to lose everything. And so he needed this wealthy individual to help fund this project.
There was just one problem.
Mr. Tormazov said that he told James Henrikson, under no uncertain terms would this person get involved as long as Doug Carlile was involved, because of his previous dealings with him. Mr. Tormazov told me that this made James Henrikson very angry.
Turns out, the only thing standing between James Henrikson and millions of dollars is Doug Carlile.
Money is always a motivation for murder. I mean, when the stakes get higher, sometimes the danger factor increases.
Money, they say, is the root of all evil. That may be a bit of an overstatement, but is it a common denominator in a majority of murders? Unfortunately, yes. When you have a trail of bad debts and damaged business relationships, greed is going to push to the top in Doug's case.
What investigators learn next cracks the case wide open.
Doug found an investor who lived in Texas, who had a lot of money, who was willing to invest in this land. He'd done the research, he knew that there was a lot of money in it. Doug had convinced this person that really they didn't need James, but he needed to be bought out because they were partners. And he'd agreed to do that. They were set to meet the following day in order to work out the finances to buy James out and to actually begin working on drilling oil wells.
Turns out Doug was murdered just days before he was set to cut James out of the business. If James had caught wind of the plan, he'd have even more motive to want Doug dead.
We're trying to piece everything together. DeLeo had been in North Dakota since at least Thanksgiving. He hadn't been back to Spokane. We knew Henrikson had been in North Dakota consistently even longer than that. Neither of them had been to town recently, which again creates issues when these are your two suspects and you know that they haven't been anywhere near the murder.
This is now the second viable suspect that police have had to strike off their list. So now they are losing momentum. They've spun their wheels for a while now with these people. Where do you go next?
Police finally get a breakthrough when DNA is pulled from the glove found at the crime scene.
25 days after the murder, I received a phone call from the State Patrol Crime Lab and was told that they had a hit to an individual by the name of Tim Suka.
When we first hear the name Timothy Suka, I got very excited, but it was hampered a little bit by we'd never heard that name before. And it came off a glove that I found in a field. What if it's just a coincidence? What if Timothy Suka is the next door neighbor? We didn't know who it was at that point.
I immediately began researching Timothy Suka and found that he was a multi-time convicted felon of violent crimes, first-degree robberies, gun crimes, and that he lived in the Spokane area. I started looking for Timothy Suka's connection to anybody associated with Doug Carlile because he didn't know Doug and didn't have a motive for killing him.
Knowing there's a small crime world in Spokane, detectives start piecing together a potential conspiracy to commit murder. Could Timothy Suka have been hired to kill Doug Carlile?
Robert DeLeo was also a true bad guy in Spokane. He comes across as very gregarious and friendly, but he's dangerous. And I wondered, his contacts in Spokane, did they have something to do with Doug's murder, and what was his real involvement with James Henrikson? I believed we had a true hitman case.
Investigators now theorize James Henrikson masterminded the murder of Doug Carlile by hiring Robert DeLeo to contract out the job to local thug, Timothy Suka.
Murder for hire schemes are fortunately fairly rare. Most people act impulsively and do their own dirty work. Whoever's concocted this murderous scheme simply doesn't want to get their hands dirty or wants to leave themselves an alibi. So you're essentially looking for an absolute stranger who committed the murder for some kind of payoff. The key to finding them in that case is to find the person who did have the motive and ideally linking them to the killer.
So the first thing we do is try and connect Timothy Suka to James Henrikson and Robert DeLeo, but he doesn't connect to any of them.
Detectives place Timothy Suka on 24-hour undercover surveillance.
We began following Timothy Suka around, trying to find out everything we can about him. We find out that he works for an asbestos removal company in the Spokane Valley. As we start looking at the company, we see some vans parked out front. One of them, which looks exactly like the van that had been described to us at the crime scene.
I checked our list of 75 vehicles that we received from the state of Washington as potential owners of those suspect vehicles, and that asbestos removal company was listed as an owner of one of those matching vans. I had undercover detectives go out and view that van, and that van had some very unique identifying marks on it, which exactly matched the van at the crime scene. I was very certain that this was the vehicle used in the murder of Doug Carlile.
While the evidence connecting Timothy Suka to the crime scene is strong, it's not enough to charge him with Doug Carlile's murder.
We began diving into cell phone records. We began looking at towers. Timothy Suka had left his cell phone at home because he didn't want to be tracked. He knew a little bit about how police worked. His driver got bored and turned his phone back on and was playing on the phone while he was waiting. So we were able to place the van and the driver at the scene for about 2 hours beforehand.
With the evidence now stacked against him, Timothy Suka is arrested for the murder of Doug Carlile.
Not only do we have DNA linking this person there, we find no other reason for him to be in that area, and now we have our van that was used as the getaway van. So we start putting everything together and we bring him in.
On the night I arrested Mr. Suka, he was in denial, refused to speak with me, and in fact, he fell asleep on the interview room table.
Back in basic homicide school, you learn that when someone's done a serious crime, they're constantly looking over their shoulder. They have trouble sleeping. They're waiting for the police to show up knocking at their door. So when you arrest someone and you tell them they're under arrest and you know they did it, all that pressure's off now. And it's not uncommon for suspects to fall asleep. And so we knew we had our guy.
I got a search warrant to access Tim's phone, and in that phone was James Henrikson's name. It says James, North Dakota, and it was James's phone number attached to it. So at that point, I knew that at least in some way, Tim Suka knew James Henrikson directly.
About an hour after the murder, Timothy Suka sent a text message to Robert DeLeo saying, "Tell the boss to watch the news." This was obviously letting Henrikson know that he had carried out the murder.
At this point in the investigation, I've got an overwhelming amount of evidence that's pointing toward Mr. DeLeo and Mr. Henrikson's involvement in Mr. Carlile's murder.
Detectives haul Robert DeLeo into the station for questioning.
I told Mr. DeLeo, you know the game. First to the table gets the best deal. And he was trying to beat Mr. Suka to the table to provide information. Ultimately, DeLeo admitted to brokering the murder of Doug Carlile for James Henrikson.
With the confession that James Henrikson was responsible for the hit on Doug Carlile, detectives are able to piece together his final 24 hours.
Timothy Suka had been up at the house for a couple hours, waiting for the Carliles to return home. They'd been at a church function that began at about 5 o'clock. They drove home, parked their car probably about 6:55 in the evening.
They entered the residence. Alberta started up the stairs. When she heard voices in the house, so she came back downstairs to see who was there. She actually saw the shooter and saw him with a gun.
At 7:02, Timothy Suka shot Doug Carlile 7 times and ran away. At 7:03 p.m., Alberta, Carlile called 911, reporting that someone had just shot her husband.
Medics pronounced Doug dead at 7:18 in the evening.
Timothy Suka then disposed of the murder weapon.
Timothy Suka had driven out to the Spokane Valley, out to a bridge, and tossed the murder weapon into the river.
My biggest takeaway in this case is that Doug is not unlike a lot of investors who has this sort of modest demeanor or veneer, and he likes to take risks in financial games. And when they begin losing money, the stakes are even higher than I think Doug and a lot of these people initially guessed.
Robert DeLeo pleads guilty to conspiracy and solicitation to commit murder and is sentenced to 22 years in prison.
Mr. DeLeo is a sociopath who has no guilt feelings about anything he's done.
Timothy Suka pleads guilty to murder and receives a sentence of 30 years.
He's gonna be like 80 years old if he ever sees daylight again. So basically it's a death sentence he got, so I think his sentence was fair, provided the information he gave and the help he gave to the case to get the actual person that I believe is responsible.
James Henrikson is found guilty of murder for hire and sentenced to life in prison.
James Henrikson, to me, very much presents like a classic quintessential psychopath. He starts out as a con man, wheeling and dealing, moving on to bigger scams, which eventually ends up into being a mastermind of a murder.
This was a case where we took down some real bad people. These weren't people that just lost their temper and killed someone. These were pre-planned murders. What this came down to was greed. James saw a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and he was willing to kill anyone who got between him and that money. And Doug Carlile was going to buy him out, and he wasn't going to get that money, so he had him killed. It was all about money, it was all about greed.
This case was the most complicated case that I've ever worked on. It meant a lot to the Carlile family that I was able to bring this case to resolution. I received phone calls from every son from Alberta thanking me. They're just good people who are appreciative that their dad got justice.
Doug Carlile was a truly innocent victim in this case, and the people involved are sitting in prison where they deserve to be.
This wasn't just a single gunshot wound to the chest and run away. Somebody wanted her dead.
A cold-hearted execution.
You see this type of stuff on TV, not real-life drama.
A bizarre mystery with multiple suspects.
He said they're actually having a 3-way sexual relationship.
In homicides, it's not uncommon for an affair, lust, to be the motivator to cause somebody to commit murder.
The truth will be revealed.
He was my best friend for a long time.
It just doesn't sit right. You know there's more to the story.
Oh my God.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Yakima, Washington, a beautiful valley full of lush farmland in the heart of the state.
Yakima Valley is a great place. We have over 300 days of sunshine a year. We can go skiing in the winter. And we go water skiing throughout the summer in the local lakes.
99% of the population are wonderful, genuine people.
We have our everyday break-ins, burglaries, thefts, quite common. But most of the time, it's a pretty safe place to be.
But on a quiet evening, the tranquility of this rural valley is shattered forever.
That night, I was working graveyard shift patrol. 911 call came in about 8:28 in the evening.
Sheriff's office.
Hi, ma'am. This is Scott Sunford.
The person who was calling was concerned because he had received several alarm trips from the house during the day and hadn't been able to get hold of his wife.
Okay, did somebody break into the residence?
I don't know. I've been out of town and I haven't been able to get a hold of the wife, so I was just hoping somebody can come meet me out there. Probably nothing, but I would feel better.
Okay. All right, we'll get someone out there.
The house that we were responding to was on a very long road. No street lights. The houses are set back a little bit. So I pull to the left of Mr. Sunford, and he has his door open of his car, and I can see that he has a gun by his side. He has a spotlight on, and I'm trying to figure out why he's set this way, almost tactically like a police officer would. I don't know. Maybe he's watching TV and he just sees this is how cops stand. And I asked him, "Did you go inside and look?" He says, "No, I don't know what's in there. I don't want to get hurt." So we decided that we're gonna go ahead and make an entry into this house. I have my duty pistol drawn. I'm in the low ready, and I'm what they call cutting the pie, and just working the angles of the door, protecting myself. I open the door, and it's dark, but I can see through ambient light. And I turn to the right to go down the hallway, maybe about 7 feet. And I saw that there's a body laying on the ground. I can see the bullet casings to her left. And as I peer over her body, I'm looking into the bedroom, and I can see more bullet casings on the ground. And looking down at her, it's obvious to me that she's dead.
The woman is 30-year-old Desiree Sunford.
Desiree was a very well-liked school teacher. She had a lot of friends, loved by her family, was not known to get in any trouble whatsoever. Just a good-natured human being.
Scott and Desiree Sunford were married in 2003. He worked at the local military training center here in Yakima County. They were into motorcycles. They enjoyed outdoor activity.
Heading up the investigation into Desiree Sunford's murder is veteran detective Dave Johnson.
Any homicide's a big puzzle. Who has the means and who has the motive to kill this individual? Who has what to gain?
The first order of business, examining the body to try and determine time of death.
Based on lividity, which is the pooling of the blood in the body, rigor mortis, which is the hardening of the muscles, Desiree had been dead anywhere between 12 and 18 hours. That gives us a place to start on our timeline. So I arrived there at 9:30 in the evening. It's going to put that timeline sometime between 9 o'clock that morning and 3:30 in the morning.
Having established a window of death, detectives will now need to unravel the last 24 hours of Desiree's life to catch her killer.
From the collection of the evidence at the scene, the shell casings, and then the autopsy, she was shot 9 times.
It was obvious that she had tried to crawl away. From experience, that when somebody's shot at numerous times like that, there was an intent to kill that person. Somebody wanted her dead. This wasn't just a single gunshot wound to the chest and run away.
Detectives survey the crime scene, looking for more evidence.
We did find a bloody footprint of a boot that had been left there at the scene. Whoever committed this crime had stepped in the blood and then walked out. We were able to determine what type of boot that was, the size, 12 to 14. We're looking at a fair-sized individual with a large shoe. During the processing of the crime scene, we were able to recover her cell phone. We know she was alive at 10:30 the night before when she's talking to her mom. And we know that the alarm went off around 3:30 that morning. So it's starting to give us a timeline of what kind of activity is going on. It gives us an indication that they broke into the home, the alarm goes off, she wakes up. She got up to find out why the alarms were going off at 3:30 in the morning. Sees who it is, turns to run, and then she was shot.
Detectives learn that the Sunford residence had been burglarized a few weeks earlier. The thief stole their laptop computer, jewelry, and a jewelry box.
The back door of the house was broken into. Scott Sunford had boarded it up, and it appears that they had broke back into the same place as the last burglary.
The first person detectives question is Desiree's husband, Scott Sunford.
We disarmed him. We took his gun from him for obvious reasons. He was very proud of that gun. He told us where he had got it, and it's quite interesting how he wanted to have a conversation about this handgun, which, hey man, do you remember we just told you your wife is dead in the house? I mean, and you want to talk about this handgun you've got. Just odd, completely odd.
He just lost his wife of 10 years. And he didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask how she died. He didn't ask, did she suffer, or anything that we call normal responses.
So when someone is informed that, somebody that they know or has been involved with is viciously murdered, you're obviously looking to see what their reaction may be. You want to see, is it socially acceptable? Is it something that seems fitting with the situation at hand, or does it not seem to match? These are all very important reactions and all mean different things.
Scott explains that he had been away in the Tri-Cities for a funeral, an hour and a half away.
When was the last time that you actually talked to her on the phone?
The last time I talked to her was at the funeral service.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
So you talked to her yesterday evening, and did she indicate that anything was wrong or everything seemed okay?
No, it was fine. Yeah, it was just a quick, hi, yeah, it looks like I'm gonna stay. It's going kind of long. Love you. Talk to you soon. See you tomorrow,
When the alarm had gone off that Sunday morning, and he's notified through the alarm company, what he told us, it didn't seem to bother him. He figured it was Desiree getting up, letting the dog out, or not setting the alarm right, and so it wasn't a big concern.
He didn't start to worry until later that day, on the drive home.
The alarm system was set to arm stay, meaning that she's at home, so she should be home. So why isn't she answering me? And that scared me. And I headed to the house, and I pulled down the driveway. And I stayed there. I kept waiting. I couldn't go in. I didn't know what the hell to do.
And the question is, why didn't he go in? Why wouldn't he have gone in?
He's a combat veteran, armed with a .45, 6'4", 250 pounds. You would think if a man, a husband's there, and he thinks his family's in trouble, he'd go through fire.
So I felt that kind of threw a flag, gave me a flag. This isn't right. This isn't normal.
Suspicious of his story, detectives take Scott down to the station for further questioning.
He's put in one of our 2 interview rooms. And while he's sitting there alone in the room, he's trying to deep breathe. He's talking to himself. Pull yourself together, don't cry. like he's trying to psych himself up, getting ready for the hard questions that's going to be asked of him.
I've been a police officer 28, 29 years, and this was one of the strangest reactions I have ever seen from anybody.
Given that Desiree had been killed sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning, detectives asked Scott for a detailed account of his whereabouts that weekend.
I left the house at probably 8:30. I went down to the Tri-Cities. I went to the service, and from that point on, I was with my dad and grandpa.
He spent the afternoon there with relatives after the funeral, and then he called Desiree and said, because of the weather, I'm going to stay here, spend the night, and I'll come home Sunday. During the interview, Scott did say that instead of staying with his dad, who lives down there, he did go to another home.
When you stayed at your dad's in Kennewick?
No, I actually stayed with a friend, but...
What's the friend's name?
Oh, her name's Paige. She's a mutual friend.
What time do you think you arrived at Paige's house?
I'd say 12:30-ish. She had already went and laid down, so I had to go wake her butt up.
Did Desiree know that you were going to Paige's?
I don't know, honestly.
Was it just a platonic friendship, or did you have a sexual relationship with Paige?
No, and honestly, we didn't even do anything. I was out on the couch anyways.
He said that he just spent the night there. He slept on her couch. That just didn't fit well with us. He's a grown man and she's a grown woman. That definitely raised red flags for the team.
In homicides, it's not uncommon for an affair, lust, to be the motivator to cause somebody to commit murder.
So is this his alibi? Is he out of town? Is he really out of town? We need to go find Paige.
After discovering Desiree Sunford shot to death in her home, investigators attempt to validate her husband's alibi by tracking down a woman by the name of Paige Blades.
Paige is a single mother. She was in the military at one point. Now she works at a food manufacturing company, lives a few miles from there. We told Paige that Desiree had been killed. That's why we're there, to find out Scott's activity. He said he was with Paige.
When was the last time that you saw Scott?
Last Saturday, 2 nights ago. He came, he had a funeral in Tri-Cities, and we met for dinner up there, and he ended up coming back here to spend the night.
So you met him in the Tri-Cities, and then you guys came back here together?
No, I met him and I came home and dropped my son off with his dad. Scott didn't come until about 11 o'clock, 11:30 that night.
Her statement was almost verbatim with Scott's statement that he came at a certain time, he left at a certain time. We thought she was very forthright, very honest with us.
Did he coach you at all about what to say when we came to talk to you?
No. He told me that he had been completely honest and that he hadn't hidden anything.
But there is one notable difference between Paige and Scott's stories.
What was the nature of your relationship with Scott?
He's my best friend.
Your best friends?
When we first met, I was drinking really a lot. He helped me sober up. He helped me with a lot of personal issues that I was going through. We became intimate probably later that first year.
He told us that it was just a friendship, that he slept on her couch, and she said, no, it's a lot more than that. We've been having an affair, and we do sleep with each other, and it was just not a casual relationship. Obviously, Scott was hiding something from us. We're wondering what other things he's hiding from us. Just adding to those red flags from the initial time we first met Scott at the home the night of the homicide.
Detectives confront Scott about his affair with Paige. But what Scott tells them next turns the case in an entirely new direction.
Well, Des didn't want me to say anything to anybody, but she kind of had mixed feelings. So at one point, her and Paige had a little thing going for a while there, a little experiment.
Okay, so it was Desiree and Paige who had the sexual relationship?
Yeah.
But not you and Paige? Or
we all did.
Sometimes you and Paige too?
Honestly, we all did.
Scott tells us they're actually having a three-way sexual relationship.
It's kind of one of those things where as long as we're going to do anything, we need to make sure we all are fine with doing anything.
So it's
everybody stays informed, avoid hard feelings.
Scott told us that they were just one happy big family and everybody got along, that there was no conflict going on at all. We just didn't buy it.
It just doesn't sit right. You know there's more to the story.
Whenever you have a case involving, let's say, open relationships or polyamorous swinging relationships, and you have someone saying, you know, it's consensual, everyone's on board with this, frequently, there's usually someone who's not. And when you have the one person who can maybe confirm if it's one or the other, when they end up dead, it looks more like the latter, a love triangle, and not a consensual open relationship.
Detectives aren't buying Scott Sunford's story, so they work to physically link him to the crime.
So we get another search warrant to go through the house and collect any boots, clothing that would maybe connect Scott to the crime scene. We're looking for boots that may match the footprint that we found at the scene. We compared the shoes that we recovered from Scott's residence to the bloody footprint that we found at the scene, and they were not a match. Scott's still on top on the list, but as far as physical evidence or even probable cause to take him into custody, we have nothing at this point.
The only other person of interest they have is the third wheel in Scott and Desiree's relationship, Paige Blades.
In this case, where there's so many different scenarios at play, it can be pretty complicated to narrow down a motive, and in some ways there might be multiple ones. You know, my read of this case is perhaps it's long on lies and short on facts. So how do you determine what individual motivations are and how they played out to, you know, murder?
Investigators dig into Desiree's cell phone messages, looking for insight into the nature of her relationship with Paige.
There was a series of text messages between Desiree and Paige. They seemed to be contradicting from what Scott had been telling us so far, with Desiree really aware and comfortable with their sexual encounters. Desiree writes, "You guys' comfort level with each other is much higher than I'm okay with." Paige returns a text, "I'm sure I could have sex with him. I just don't think about it because he's married." Desiree then says, "I'm just getting frustrated. You two chat and show pics, and I tend to be left out." Over time, it's starting to bug me. And Paige says, "I try to stay out of the way as much as possible. I understand if you don't want me here."
But one text in particular reveals a possible motive for Paige to kill Desiree.
Paige said that if anything ever happened to Desiree and Scott needed a new wife, that Paige would be the new wife, that she would be waiting in the wings for him. They're not smoking guns, but they're certainly giving us a lot of red flags to look at. But we still don't have any physical evidence. We just have some text messages that is not a crime, and this is a motive. Why is Desiree killed? If Scott and Paige want to continue their lives, the motivation would be get rid of Desiree.
Investigators are zeroing in on Scott and Paige as the prime suspects in Desiree Sunford's murder.
We're not sure who the dominant individual is in this relationship. Is it Scott manipulating Paige, or is it Paige manipulating Scott? It could go either way at this point in the investigation.
Then, they get a phone call that tips the balance towards Paige.
We get information through a tip that Paige is pregnant. That kind of puts a new twist in the situation. Okay, whose baby is it? Is it Scott's? Is Paige more involved in it? She wants Scott all to herself. Did she have something to do with Desiree's death?
It's possible that, Paige is a strong suspect. She's the other woman. She may present as a femme fatale character, somebody who's using her sexuality or her seductive appeal to be able to manipulate others in terms of getting what she wants. That could be love, that could be money, that could be power.
As we look at Paige's phone records, we cannot put her anywhere near the Sunford home the night of the homicide. So as far as we can tell, she's not the killer itself, but that doesn't eliminate that she may know more than what she's telling us or directing someone to do it for her.
Gut feeling tells me Paige didn't reveal everything. I think there's more to this than meets the eye.
While investigators suspect that Scott and Paige conspired to kill Desiree, they don't have the evidence to prove it.
Well, the case is really basically cold. At this point in the investigation, we're starting to be a little frustrated. We all believe that Scott is involved. We believe that Paige may be involved, but we have no hard evidence. The families that are involved also get frustrated with us. They're calling us sometimes daily. What's going on with the case? They're hurting. They're grieving. They want somebody held accountable for their loved one's death, and we want to give that closure to them.
Over a year goes by with no leads, until detectives get an anonymous phone tip that turns the case around.
So 15 months later, we get a call that says Marty Grismer is the person who killed Desiree Sunford. Well, that doesn't help us a lot other than it gets us excited we got somebody to talk to.
This is the first time detectives have even heard the name Marty Grismer. They need to track down the source of the tip to find out more.
We work over several hours trying to figure out who made this phone call. We're able to track down this individual. It's actually Paige. This is a huge break if it's the right information. So we convince her to come to Yakima. We're okay. Paige, when did you find out about this? How do you know Marty?
Marty was my best friend for a long time.
Turns out Marty and Paige have a relationship. They're good friends. They're colleagues at work.
So why don't you just tell me in your own words what you've heard, how you heard it? I think that's as good a place as any.
Last week, I had Scott over, and we were arguing, and I asked Marty to come over and get the baby. So he came over and he picked him up, and everything was fine. Scott was asleep.
At this time, Scott is now no longer interested in Paige. Scott's moved on and has another woman in his life.
I told him what was going on. And he asked me if I wanted him to take care of this new woman like he did Des. And I asked him what he was talking about.
And then it was shortly around that time that Marty confessed that he killed Desiree.
We had just found out about 3 weeks before the shooting that I was pregnant. Marty was one of the first people that I told. And apparently he decided that if the baby was Scott's, then Desiree would cause issues. Oh my God.
She explains that Marty will do anything for her to make sure she's happy. And if that means taking out Desiree, he'll do it. And he did.
It could also be that Marty is trying to frame Scott for this murder so that he and Paige can then get together. At some level, though, I think that there has to be a latent antisociality here. He can't just be infatuated. You have to be a person who's infatuated and willing to do something criminal in order to achieve your goal.
What was your reaction when he started telling you all this?
I was in shock. I just mostly just sat and listened. I asked him how he thought he was going to get away with it.
What do you say to that?
I said, I already have.
If the information Paige is giving them is true, it could be the break they've been looking for. But something doesn't sit right about Paige's story.
We were excited, we had a suspect, we had a confession, but we don't have anything to back it up. It was a strange motive with Marty wanting to take care of something and not getting anything in return. That was strange. So we're wondering how much Paige is trying to redirect this information. Is she directing us the wrong way again? Get the light off of her and Scott and threw Marty under the bus? I've never had a case like this take a twist like this before. You see this type of stuff on TV and fiction, not real life drama. But, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes you can't make this stuff up.
Paige Blades has just told police that Marty Grismer confessed to murdering Desiree Sunford in a misguided attempt to make her life better. But detectives aren't fully convinced.
We're getting a feeling that Paige is a kind of a worldly young lady. She's had many relationships. We're not sure how she manipulates everybody in these relationships. We have thoughts that, okay, is she trying to point us in a different direction, make Marty a scapegoat? We don't know.
But Paige says she can prove she's telling the truth.
So our next move is Paige agrees to wear a wire, and Paige tries to get Marty to tell us everything he knows on tape.
Have you given any thought to when or where the safest place to meet him might be?
We work together, but I would really hate to do it at work.
So it wouldn't, you guys are close enough to where you could call him and say, hey, meet me here, and it wouldn't be a big deal. You guys
pretty much, yeah.
There are risks for having someone wear a wire when engaging with someone who's a person of interest in a violent crime. And legally, it can be seen as entrapment. Police officers are experts at getting confessions, and even they have difficulty. So the average person, even if they're very close to the person who committed the offense, is not necessarily going to be able to get a confession.
She was nervous. She was had some anxiety about it, but she was willing to do it and wanting to get this done. So we got the order, and a meeting was set up.
What is the word that we are using that if something bad happens that you were going to say?
Avalanche.
Okay, now I know you want to fight. If something happens, I'm going to ask you to yell avalanche several times. I want you to curl and lean away from him, okay?
Where are you guys going to be sitting?
We will be in parking lot.
Okay.
Probably less than 20 yards away, 25 yards away.
We have a team of investigators up there. They're posted in different locations around this coffee shop to not only be able to hear what's going on, but also be able to observe what's going on. And if Marty does confess to the crime on tape, we'll take him into custody.
Saved you a spot?
Good.
Give me a hug, asshole. Hey, I'm just saying, you didn't give me a hug last time I saw you. I was very hurt.
Paige is told that she can direct it a little bit, but We don't put anything into his mouth. It has to be all his statement.
Paige bides her time, looking for the right moment to bring up the murder.
Give me a minute of your time with nobody around. Because I know that you said that there was no evidence. So I'm just wondering for sure if there's nothing left.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have anything. Never done anything.
You can't freak me out, put me in full-on panic mode, and then just be like, nope, I don't know what you're talking about.
There's nothing anywhere, anything on anything. It's as clear as mud, right?
Marty's not being very cooperative. We're not sure if he's getting a second sense of something going on, but he does not talk about the murder. Paige tries to direct him, come on, tell us what happened. And he's basically saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
I've smoked a carton and a half since last Friday. That's from all this stress.
Yeah.
I've calmed down a lot, but I'm still kind of in panic mode.
Can't imagine why you're panicking.
Oh, yeah. Gee, I wonder.
You got so much stress in your life on there. I don't know why you have such a break.
Right, because I haven't had any sort of
with reality,
confusing dreams with reality. Is that what happened?
I think Marty feels that something's wrong. Why is she up here? Why does she want to talk about this? Marty does not confess to the crime. Marty doesn't give any indication that he's involved. And so we all go home with a failure. It takes an emotional toll on any investigator in a case like this.
These detectives go out there and they bust their butts, and their sole purpose is to get justice for the family. It's their job. Not only is it their job, but it's something they believe in. They want to solve this crime.
Yeah, we're back to square one. We're not sure what we think of Paige right now.
Then, they get a surprising phone call that leads to securing the first real piece of hard evidence in the entire investigation.
We received a call from the company where Marty worked. The office was being cleaned out where Marty worked, and a plastic bag of gun parts were found. And the company called us and said, you'd be interested to look at these. We drove there immediately, recovered those gun parts, and sent them off to the lab. We recovered the bullets from Desiree's body. Through the analysis of the crime lab, they were able to say those bullets came from that barrel. That would be called the smoking gun. That barrel's connected with Marty. Those bullets came from that barrel that came from Desiree. Those are the dots that you connect that Marty is our suspect.
Having discovered the murder weapon, detectives close in on Marty Grismer.
One team goes to the father's house. One team stands back while we contact Marty at his apartment. Marty is taken into custody voluntarily.
With the evidence stacked against him, detectives are hoping for a confession.
Your life is not ready to change depending on the answers you're giving us.
I know that.
That's how serious this is.
And we start confronting him with the facts that we have from Paige about the homicide. He denies everything, but he's getting very, very nervous, even to the point where he said he's almost sick.
Have you ever discussed killing her with Paige?
No.
Did she ever ask you to kill Desiree Sunford?
No. No one's ever asked me to kill anyone. I wouldn't. I've never thrown a punch in anger in my life. I wouldn't kill anyone. It's not who I am.
Where the problem comes in is that Paige is saying that you are the one who shot and killed Desiree Sunford. She said that you confessed that to her. And she came in and gave a taped statement to that effect.
He does admit that he bought gun barrels from a certain company, which matched the barrel that we had, that we found at the workplace, but he had no confession, no detail regarding the homicide of Desiree Sunford.
Can't believe that. Just trying to ruin my life here. I mean, I haven't done anything wrong other than that, but she's trying to engineer to set me up here, do something. I was saying to you that that killed someone under that. It makes me sick.
He was trying to give a little indication that maybe Paige was more involved. She had the issues with Scott. She had the issues with Desiree. Marty said that Paige borrowed his gun at about the time of the homicide.
Getting to the truth in this case is very hard. You have lies upon lies. You have many different deceptions at play here. And so you need to be able to look for additional forms of evidence that can rule in or rule out certain people of interest. You can't just take what people say at face value, because clearly we have some practiced liars in this scenario, people who are well-versed at using deception to get what they want.
Unsure whether Marty Grismer is lying, they search his residences, hoping to find something to settle the question of who killed Desiree once and for all.
While we were doing the search warrant of Marty's dad's home, we found shoes that matched the size of the footprint we found at the crime scene in the blood.
And that's not the only piece of incriminating evidence they find.
Workers at the plant where Marty worked found items that were connected to the Sunford burglary before the homicide. They found the laptop computer belonging to the Sunfords, the jewelry box belonging to Desiree Sunford, and jewelry belonging to Desiree Sunford. We had the information that Paige told us. We have the gun. Ballistics matched that barrel to the slugs recovered from Desiree. We felt we had a case enough to arrest him.
Detectives charge Marty Grismer with the first-degree murder of Desiree Sunford.
And Marty just didn't really give any major emotion that he hadn't already given us. He was upset, he felt sick. We arrested without incident. He was transported back to Yakima and booked in the county jail.
Investigators now believe they know what happened to Desiree in the final 24 hours of her life.
She did talk to her mother about 10:30 that night. It had been Saturday night before she died. She basically sounded like she was taking care of the dogs, doing some last-minute schoolwork, and Scott was gone for the weekend and she was going to be uninterrupted. Based on what Marty told Paige, he left Moses Lake area about 1:30. It's about a 2-hour drive to Yakima. He arrives in Yakima, locates the key for the house that he knew about, opens up the door, sets off the alarm, walks in. Desiree wakes up. Confronts him. He fires his gun 9 times. Killing Desiree. And then he opens the rear door like to make it look like a burglary. Goes out the front door, and then he drives back to Moses Lake, burns his clothing, hides his gun parts later. If Marty had kept his mouth shut, he would have got away with it.
But one question still haunts detectives.
Was there any type of plan between Scott and Paige and Marty to commit this crime? Or was Marty working all by himself with his delusion of his relationship with Paige, we can only prove that Marty did it. We can only prove that Marty had the opportunity and the motive to do it and the items that was used in the crime.
Marty Grismer enters an Alford plea and is sentenced to 15 years in prison.
An Alford plea basically says the state has enough evidence to convict, but he's still denying any type of involvement, and he was sentenced to 15 years.
I don't think justice was fully served for the family. The prosecutor's office and the detectives did the absolute best they can with what they had. And I know the prosecutors and detectives are all sitting back thinking about this, knowing that there's another piece of that puzzle out there. There's something else that's out there. Somebody knows something.
May not be a great win, but I think for the family and for all the team involved, we got our guy. That is a win to put somebody in jail, that you can tell the family, this is who killed your daughter.
You can't bring back the memories. Her mother will never hold her again. Her mother will never get to talk to her again. Her mother will not be able to enjoy the possibility of grandchildren. So not only was Desiree Sunford's life cut short, but her family's life, in essence, was cut short as well.